Hello, and welcome to this Geekatplay tutorial. In this tutorial, we will actually create some interesting scenery with our own materials. And when we begin, we'll be using Photoshop, so we'll be using some different applications. You can use any illustrating or photo editing application you're familiar with, but for now, we'll just go to File, Create New, and we'll make it 1024 by 1024 pixels as the size of our image here. And now we'll just reset the colors here to black and white and go to the filters, render, clouds, and again filter, render, different clouds. So you can see that this is a very interesting texture that has been created. One of the best things about this is the tile. And now we're going to the image, adjust the levels, and we'll bring the white right here. So we'll actually removing some grays to get a little bit more contrast. Probably we want it this way. Click OK, and let's save this image right now. We'll go to Save for Web and Devices, and we'll just set it on the maximum. Okay. And if you want, of course, you can optimize it. You can reduce it to high if you're worried about memory, but we're fine here. So we'll just click Save. And we'll just save this as a map. Map 1. The other things that we can also do is go to filters and maybe try the different clouds a couple more times. It just slightly changes, but it's based on the same pattern. The reason we're doing this is so we can have a few other textures as well. And we'll go to adjust the levels, and maybe we'll try to crush them again a little bit more. So here's another texture, and let's save this one too on the high, and we'll call this map 2. If you want to add more interest to your textures, you can go in and choose some filter like plastic wrap, and let's bring this window down. And here you can preview how it will look and with the filter applied. So let's increase it, maybe the smoothness, and increase the details a little bit. The highlight strength. So now we've gotten this kind of look from the same pattern we started with. And we'll save this one as well as map 3. So we're done with Photoshop now, and let's go into View. Okay, now in View, let's create some textures, and you can actually use this to create your own custom rocks. So we'll click here and bring in our rock, and this is for us to see this. So we're just positioning it now so we can get a good look at it. And I just want to show you what View rocks look like. And this is what we have by default. So right now, we'll just be changing the textures with the stuff that we created. So we'll open the Materials Editor. And here, we are going to be creating the new textures from the ones that we have available now. Let's mix this with 2 materials. And we'll take our top one. If you want to base it on this one, and let's change it to maybe something very basic, the default color, and we have this material. Let's look now at the edit function. For now, we won't touch the colors. We'll just work with a bump materials, we'll just highlight it and click on the textures. Let's load our image right now. We'll go right here and click on our map 1. Okay. In the future we'll add additional textures, but for now we're going step by step so to see along the way what we're doing. And if you see, we already have some nice texture applied from what we created. Next, we'll just go to the top one, and in distribution materials, add a picture so that it's a projected texture map. And we'll load map 1 there as well. But one thing that we want to do is to actually increase the size a little bit. So we'll highlight here, node, and add a filter. And let's edit our filter. The key point will just kind of increase a little bit. So let's swap the materials, and now you'll see inside how it has this texture. It kind of looks like a planet, and of course we can edit distribution key point, and you can see how playing around with this changes things. If you want, you can kind of make this dark, inner bit a little smaller, and we also can blend it. Now you can change the colors of these materials from gray so you can get a better idea of how they will mix together when you preview. At this point we're actually going to replace this, so we go right here and we'll select the material, and let's select mossy rock because it has something we need. We don't need the rock, just the moss, but sometimes it's nice to use, so we'll swap and switch to simple material. It will go back here, and let's delete this layer for now. So all that we've done is just replaced one material with what we like. And if we go up, you'll see right here what we have. Here you see we have our global grass selected. Let's add a layer here now, and we'll just select the basic default one. All that we needed is actually color. You can do this as well from the function and set color from the altitude, but here I kind of work with layers again so we can see how they work. If you notice right here, we can change colors. Again, if you preview, this is ours, and right here you see darker, and then it's going lighter and lighter until it kind of disappears up there. Okay, now let's look at this materials, and we'll also create a mixed material here, but let's enable the influence of materials, and let's swap them. And when we click on this material, let's just replace this maybe with this mossy rock. But again, all that we need to do is just take this moss. We selected that one, and we can increase. You know what? While we have this rock selected, let's edit this rock right now. So I'll click on default. Let's edit function. And what we can do, we'll just remove these nodes now. Select the color map. You can double time click open. And we have these maps here. But you can select from what comes from View. Stone gray. Let's select this one. And also we want to create distribution here. Connect the node. Let's go right here and maybe reduce the scale. So there are a few more spots. Now let's look a little bit more on our bumps here. So we select and add our additions. Let's click on the side and we'll add another fractal. we connect it. And this fractal, maybe we want to decrease it a little bit. And also maybe instead of a fractal, what you can do, let's select it. Let's delete that for now and select this. And instead of this image, remember we had these different maps. You remember you can have map 3 connected and just put this to gray output. This will just jumble, combine nicely together, and then we want to add a filter. We actually lost the connection here right now. There you go. Let's reconnect it. So we added a filter, and in this case we can manipulate how much we want this to influence it. And we can, let's preview now what we've done here. And also, if you want, we can decrease the scale maybe to 4. So it'll be a little bit rougher looking. Let's go OK. And this is our rock that we've created. And we can add stuff to make it a little bit wetter look. And this is a this is a preview of what we have with the moss and the rock. And this is our combination. So let's preview what we have. So this is an interesting look at textures and all the effects we can get with them. We have some moss here that kind of climbed up the cracks here and turned yellow here where it dried out. We can actually decrease the width of the cracks here or increase them. And you don't have to dry out the moss here, but you get a good idea. So if we go here, edit the filter, and actually decrease, or again increase, depending on what you want to do. Let's do it this way. And also, let's go into this material. And if you remember, we can also modify it here as well. And we can increase some of the other options. I think it's okay. Maybe we want to actually decrease it a little here. Let's go into our color and maybe move it a little bit to the yellowish. Let's see what we have now. And it's about what we want to achieve, about the right colors. Now, the one thing you want to do is to save a material that you've created, and then you'll build up a stash of them. So we go to Save Material, and let's name it Rock Moss. The one thing that is always a good idea is to incorporate texture maps. You might not always be using these, but sometimes if you're doing something and you don't incorporate and you remove your image, it will be lost. So it does create a little bit bigger file size of the material, but that's insignificant. And it's a lot more convenient to have this in one material than when it's missing and try to find it afterwards. So we've created it now, and we'll save now. And now we don't need this rock, so we can actually delete it. Okay, at this point, we're ready to create our terrain. Start with our normal terrain, and let's go inside, and you'll notice that we have these filters set from earlier, so we'll reset them. And we just want a simple terrain. Click OK. In this terrain, we're going to increase the size by Z. So we have this tall hill. And now, while the terrain is selected, we'll go into the terrain options, and we're going down to the twist button. So we enable twist, and here's an interesting tip. Make sure the top view is active so that we can preview. And when you go to Z and Y position, if you drag it from right to left, actually the terrain will start twisting, and the top will go this way to the right. And if you go the opposite way from the left to right, this is actually going from the right to left. So we'll go here and start dragging, and on the top you can notice how it's already moving a little bit, and that's how we'll create it. So let's undo, Control Z, and also you should preview it also in the front view to see how these rocks are tipping, coming at an angle this way. And this is what we're trying to do here. So let's preview this. So these are some rocks, maybe a mountain jutting up out of the ground. Sometimes, if you don't like it, if you want more, you can again increase it and make it look taller. And again, you can activate the front or top view, depending on what you like. And then slide it and see how much you want the rocks to tip. So when you preview it a little after, like right here, and so if you preview it right now, you have a very interesting rock formation created with the twist options. Now, you remember we created our materials before, so we'll go back and select our rock moss, and we'll apply it to this preview. The one thing that we want to do now is to take Y and maybe decrease it to 0.400. The reason why is because we stretch this terrain up in Z, and you want to make it so it's a little bit more compressed to this, so it will fit in with this better. And you can play around with that and try things out and see how they look. And here's that rock moss that we created applied now to the terrain, and it's a nice effect with some moss in dark places going through this whole outcropping. At this point, we can actually position this maybe a little bit closer like this. And now let's create one more terrain that looks like this. You know, I don't like this really either. So we can actually reset it and maybe raise it right here. I only want one single peak. Click OK, and we'll make it even a little higher this time. And remember how we did it before? We go into terrain options and we press twist, but in this case, let's go in the opposite direction. So we'll go this way. And we'll see how these rocks look together. We'll just combine them, arrange them around here. Okay, let's preview and see what we have with the same texture here in the back. And here are these two outcroppings of rock. And it's interesting how these terrains intersect. Before we start to populate it with the trees and the ecosystem, we probably want to create a drop, one big rocks on the drop, and we maybe want to create a little terrain up here in front. You can also create waterfalls if you need. But for now, let's just create a simple terrain, a little bit down, and maybe we'll decrease these hills a little bit, and we'll make it a little bit rougher here. This one is going there, and we also need to create, well, actually, if you press Alt while we have this terrain highlighted and you drag, it will duplicate it. And all that I'll do is just make sure now we have something in the background. Just right here. Stretch it out a little bit. And now Let's create our mountain right here in the back, which covers our background. We'll increase the width here. Increase the size. Let's right-click, edit objects. Oops. Okay, we actually need to raise it now. We'll increase it here and here too. So now it's like a mountain range that we're making. And if you want, you can also make 0 edges with a fractal. But for now, we'll just use it like this. And now we'll just arrange this around here and make it so it looks good back there. Okay, so here if we preview, this is what we have. Our 2 outcroppings with this jagged mountain range in the back. It's very geologically active. And I think I'm pretty happy with the terrain at this point. So we're maybe ready to add the trees. There is one thing you need to keep in mind. If we go to the first terrain and we click, this has a world standard, and we need to switch this to object standard because if you notice, they start changing here. Okay, we'll set it to object standard on our second, and the same with the other ones. And we'll change this one to object parametric. So let's preview. Okay, this one needs to be removed and changed this to object standard as well. And now let's preview again what we've got. Okay, this is about what we want to achieve. Now there's a couple things. We probably want to bring this a little bit down and the outcrops of rocks a little higher. So we probably want to adjust our camera position. So in some cases here, this is really your artistic call. How you want to place the camera. You know, it's kind of like photography. I think I like the position of this outcrop here in relation to the mountain. Yeah, so a little nudge this way. And now we'll select the first terrain. And now we're going to start playing with the ecosystem. So when we click ecosystem, it will add an additional layer, and let's add some plants. We'll select our tree, maybe a conifer. It depends on what you like, but yeah, let's go with this bulky conifer here. These don't come as a default with Vue. It's actually purchased from Cornucopia, but these trees are very nice here. It's very useful. And if you want, you can always order them from there. We'll move this window a little bit, click on Paint, and one thing you want to do is have single instance. Highlight this so we'll bring it in. Also, we'll move this away because I want to preview it here as well as here. And we'll just start putting them on. And you can see this is a little too big. Let's clear that and decrease the scale to maybe half size. And that's still too big. So we'll go just under 0.3 here. Yeah. That's just about the right size that we want to achieve here. And right now let's place a few more trees. So you see that we're kind of placing them, following down the slope. Maybe a few more right here. And some more around here. And maybe this one is growing, and some right here. Okay. Let's close this one. And now we'll go to our next terrain on this one. And the same, we'll open, we'll enable the ecosystem for this, and we'll add plants and use the same tree. The paint option is enabled, so we'll move it away. And if you notice, it remembered the scale up here, which is nice. So we're kind of just populating with these ones. And you can preview right here what we have. So we can place a few more. And maybe even a few more. So they're really enhancing this terrain here. And we'll click OK. And actually what we'll do, we're kind of repeating it with the other ones, but if you want, you can use the ecosystem population here. And we might do this. We'll just add ecosystem, we'll add a plant. And one thing, if you switch to doing it this way, make sure your scale is set properly. And then you can just have it populated. But I guess I still want to use it by hand, this single placement painting. And we'll just start putting our trees in a little bit here, a little bit there, just like before. And you have this population scattered around our terrain. And now we'll work with this background. So let's open the terrain, add an ecosystem, add a plant, select that one, and we probably want to decrease the scale on this one. This one we won't do by hand, we'll just populate it. We'll increase the density, remove this one, and let's populate. So we'll see how many of them have popped up back here right now in the back. The one thing when you're creating on any scene like this, it's very highly recommended for you to go and save during your work. So just be sure to do this, to save it periodically. And let's save our creation right now. So we'll go to File, Save, and we'll call this Terrain. Not very original, but it works for us. And we'll save our work. It's always a good idea to save our work in these stages. You know, as done with this one, it looks very nice. But you know, it's good to have a restore point to go back to, and that's really why it's good to save the work at these stages. So if you notice, it will be very nice now if you put something close up to the front so we can have something to compare scale to. Give the picture some depth, and we'll use that tree. And we can actually decrease it in size but bring it much closer to our view. So we're putting this something right up to the camera. Sometimes you need to just add a little bit. So something is right there, and let's create one more on the other side. One thing when you're putting in these trees, try to avoid putting it right on the corner, on the edge of the tree. And this is some technique. You want the people to see more of the tree, a little more than half of the tree. So if you put it more on this side, people think there might be something more and their gaze goes to the edge. So if you create borders, you just put a little more of that tree into the border. And another trick again, people only see what the camera sees. So you can hang this tree way up in the air. So we have this tree here and a little bit over. And let's actually move this one over to this side, and our other tree actually will move on this side. And so we've just kind of flipped them around. And now I think we're ready to load in an atmosphere. And load atmosphere, and the one that we're selecting, let's try maybe this greenish sky. What I want to show you is when the sun is behind. They always look very nice, these terrains, but the problem with those terrains, if you look right now, you'll notice that the contrast, you start losing the details up front. And you can see here what I mean. Things are kind of faded and blended up front, and some of those details we're missing are actually very interesting. But this is 3D and it's like painting. So if you want more light, you can just create another light and place it just a little bit above. So you see it will add. Let's move it a little bit right here. So I'll add a little bit more light to the front view. Okay, and now let's take another look at how this light has affected it. And here you can see these details have now come out in this light. But we aren't overwhelmed. We still have some darker areas, but this light gives us what we need. Just the details, so we can have the sun behind and these details. And even with this light still here, we can try some different atmospheres. Maybe we'll do this island sunset with the sun in the background. You still achieve this nice look with the sunset in the back, so your sky will enhance the whole project here. And you still are able to see the details up front. You know what? This sky is just for displaying, to bring out the best in what you've created. So don't be afraid to spend some time on choosing the right one. And I really think that the one we had before, Hostile Planet, was better for previewing our project. But we can also modify things in the atmosphere. We're not stuck. Let's switch the ambient light to a little bit darker blue. So this will give us a bit more reddish color. Let's go to the sun and maybe increase that a little bit and increase the fog and haze a little bit. Now we'll put some more density on the fog, just a little bit. So we're kind of brightening up the sky a little bit for us. And I think we're actually good here. And let's right now switch to the final preview. And we'll make the size a little bigger so we can have a better look at this. And you can play with the sky. You can do it almost forever, just fiddling around to make it better and better. Clouds, you can add more fog, and I think it could be like a never-ending story. You can play around a lot with this, but sometimes you just need to say, we're done here. So let's render this now, and let's see where we stand at this point. And here's our final rendering. And if you don't like some of the texture in the rock, you want to modify it a little bit, just go to the scale and change the scale. And remember when we went to the distribution, and you can change Y and adjust the settings. The same with the atmosphere. You can explore those settings as well. So thank you for watching this Geekatplay Studio VU tutorial. And if you have more questions or are looking for tutorials, please visit us at www.geekatplay.com or www.vututorials.com.